Hello and welcome back to Bookish, and welcome back to my Saturday Hodgepodge, my weekly wrap up of books, booktube things, political stuff, whatever I want to talk about. I am filming this on Thursday because as you watch this, I am out of town at my daughter's wedding ceremony. Will be today as you're watching this, which will be Saturday. It's when I'm posting it. My daughter's wedding was postponed because of COVID. It was supposed to be exactly on this day last year, but COVID made that impossible. We were lucky enough to reschedule it and to hold the ceremony, today, and to have all the fun. Now, technically, my daughter and her husband got married last year at this time. As well, and they've been married, but they didn't get to have a wedding ceremony. And since my daughter missed her graduation from college, she had no ceremony there. She lost her last season as a track athlete at her college. It seems fitting to have one big celebration for all the things that she missed out on, and to have a wedding and to gather our friends safely and family safely in one place. Thanks to vaccination. By the way, get vaccinated. It's your patriotic duty to be vaccinated. It's your duty as a human being to go get vaccinated. The vaccines are, for the most part, safe, far safer than COVID. There have been no proven long-term side effects. There are some side effects, apparently, that affect a small number of people, but that's probably not you. Go get vaccinated. Since I'm on a political rant, let me go ahead and deal with the political rant first. And that has to do with, once again, me feeling it necessary to talk about the issue of cancel culture. So we are told, and I have many friends here on BookTube who worry that the woke mob, as they put it, are going to, come after anybody who publishes anything or any opinion that they don't like, that they're going to have those books banned, that they're going to threaten the lives of those authors, that they're not happy necessarily with just, economic protests and trying to use their economic power to convince publishers to publish books other than books by racist, bigot, seditionists, that those people actually want to come after you and make you think just exactly like them. And if we don't, support Woody Allen being able to publish any book he wants and make any movie he wants without anybody complaining, without anybody raising any kind of a ruckus, then we are encouraging the woke mob to censorship. Let me just point out something. The woke mob, as it exists, is at best a grassroots movement, a disorganized grassroots movement with no actual power. Nobody's been canceled. I'm sorry, nobody has been canceled by this so-called SJW woke mob. There's not an example that you can find for me where somebody is literally lost their right to speech, has literally lost their right to have their book potentially published. That has not happened. And in the meantime, what we're missing is the actual canceling of real things in the United States of America. This is the danger. Notice the SJW mob that so many people are worried is going to ruin books and, make all our books boring. Notice, by the way, how patronizing that is. The idea that if we allow a group of people to protest against misrepresentation of racial and ethnic groups, if we allow a group of people to protest against the publication of misogynists, if we allow a group of people to protest and try to influence the publication, against the publication of people who express bigoted ideas, that, if we allow that to happen, that books are all going to become boring and, there won't be anything controversial or interesting in books, that's really patronizing to authors of color, because the assumption is that if we stop, notice, by the way, all the authors that everybody's worried about defending are white authors, that if we stop white authors from writing whatever they want to, if we stop white authors, we try to stop, and again, nobody's been stopped, if we try to stop bigoted white authors from making millions of dollars, that somehow books are going to become boring. Here's a thought. Maybe if publishers publish more books by people of color and more books by people from a diverse background, this wouldn't be an issue. and to suggest that books by people of color or books by people from diverse background are going to be milquetoast and boring is in fact incredibly rude and condescending. There's nothing in publishing that indicates that true. As a matter of fact, what we've learned, if you read diversely, as almost everybody here does, if you read diversely, what you learn is that diversity is making literature, books, writing, publishing better. Because inclusion of as many groups of people and as many diverse points of view as possible makes things better. And the only people remotely threatened by cancel culture, as people like to think about it in terms of this woke social justice warrior mob, are white authors who've expressed bigoted ideas, who've done incredibly creepy things, and or are out and out racist or seditionists in the case of politicians who've had their publishing contracts with major publishing houses canceled. The people we're afraid of, some people on here seem to be afraid of, this unidentified mass woke mob doesn't have any actual power. If they did, things would be very different, but they don't. And we're ignoring the people who have actual power, who are going around right now canceling things that are incredibly important. Here in Texas, the governor of Texas and the Texas legislature passed a law which effectively bans abortion after 6 weeks. They are looking at passing a law and on the verge of passing a law which would essentially outlaw the teaching of America's racist history. They put this under the guise of banning the teaching of critical race theory, as though critical race theory is anything other than a study of how racism may have affected things and the development of institutions in the United States over time. That's all it is. But they're going to ban it. They're banning the teaching of racism. For real, people with real power who control state legislatures, who can actually make laws, are banning those things. By the way, these are the very bastards who said if we took down Confederate statues that we would be erasing history. They are trying to erase America's racist history right now. That's real cancel culture. Nicole Hannah Jones, up for a tenured position at the University of North Carolina. A woman of color. One of the architects of the 1619 Project, a project which did nothing more than try to assert the importance, the primacy of slavery in the development of the United States, which it was incredibly important to the development of the United States. And she created and was the architect of the 1619 Project, which, by the way, contained contributions from historians all over the United States who agreed that slavery was incredibly important in the founding of the United States of America, and it was an issue that had been long overlooked. Because she was the architect of that, she was denied tenure at the University of North Carolina because people complained that they didn't want her to get tenure because of the 1619 Project. That is canceling. People with power are canceling people without power. And we're worried about some amorphous woke mob out there who doesn't have any actual power and hasn't canceled anything. These people are canceling voting rights. They're making it harder for people of color to vote. They are preventing a person of color from getting tenure. They are preventing our schools from teaching about the long history of racism in the United States and how it has shaped the United States of America. That's canceling. So spare me your whining, spare me your concern about J.K. Rowling and how unfairly she's being treated for making bigoted statements. She is in no danger, and meanwhile, our actual liberties, our actual history, real people are being canceled by people who actually have power. And guess who those people who actually have power are? They are wealthy white men who control our state government and wealthy white men who control our national government. They are canceling things because they have power. And they're using your fear of this woke mob to convince you to go along with it, because somehow you're in danger if we publish fewer bigots. Sorry. By the way, while I'm on political topics, this week saw the anniversary of the murder of George Floyd. Let me say something to you now. Now is the time to continue to push for police reform. Just because Derek Chauvin was convicted of murder and will spend the rest of his life in prison, just because that's true doesn't mean that issue is over. African American men are victims of violence at the hands of the police every week in this country. It's good that Derek Chauvin went to prison, but the issue of African American men being victims of violence at the hands of police has not changed. We need to continue to push for police reform. Now is the time to do that. Now is the time to push congressmen to do that. Now is the time to write your senator. Now is the time to make your donation. Now is the time to make your voice heard. Because if we wait again until a big case like this comes up, we have to catch back up to where we are. This kind of incremental change that we're seeing in the United States of America, if we're seeing it at all, is what is frustrating people so much. It's what's leading to tension and division in the United States of America. Change is not happening fast enough, and it's our job to make it happen faster. And while I'm on that subject, let me point something out. Last week I talked about the situation in Palestine, and I was a little more guarded probably than I'm comfortable with in that discussion, because at the time the fighting, or the launching of rockets, the unbalanced conflict happening in Palestine was still going on. Now that there's a ceasefire, let me point out, now is the time to put pressure on the United States government to get Israel to change its policies towards the Palestinian. Now is the time for the United States to say, you have to end the blockade. Now is the time for the United States to put pressure on Israel to allow people from Palestine to travel freely inside and outside the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. Now is the time for the United States government to put pressure on the Israeli government to stop the eviction of Arab people from East Jerusalem. Now is the time for that. You don't have to agree with me, but if you do agree with me, now is the time for that. Not while the rockets are flying. And I saw a lot of videos and tried to educate myself in this issue a lot, and a lot of people kind of support the right of the Palestinians to launch rockets into Israeli cities. I really am not comfortable with that. But I do understand that doing that is a way for the Palestinian people to get our attention, to get the world's attention. So rather, if we pay attention now when the rockets aren't flying, if we pay attention now, if we get the government to do something now, the rockets don't have to fly anymore. Now is the time to push for those issues. Not when something bad happens, but every day and now. And I'm going to try to do more. All right, sorry. Lots of political rants. So books. This has been my buddy read month. I had 3 buddy reads. I finished 2 of them, and I'll finish the 3rd by, at the very least, tomorrow, Sunday, or Monday the 31st. The wedding is kind of throwing off my reading just a little bit. I was reading George Saunders' book about writing called A Swim in a Pond in the Rain, in which essentially he tries to teach lessons about writing and even reading stories by examining and breaking down 7 classic Russian short stories by Turgenev, Tolstoy, Gogol, Chekhov. I was buddy reading this with Patrice Jones, and I'm just telling you, this was just a really fun book to read. If you have any interest in writing, if like me and Patrice, you like to see stories broken down and to kind of understand, maybe what the author was doing or why the story works, it's a really good book, and I enjoyed it. At times, I found Saunders to be a little bit overbearing, maybe just a tiny bit, but I think his overall ideas about writing these stories were great. I enjoyed his sense of humor most of the time, and there are even a couple of exercises you can do in terms of writing in the back of the book. Not that Saunders is trying to tell you how to write, because I'll be honest with you, Saunders' advice about how to write sounded a lot like Steve Donahue's advice about how to write. This is how you write, learn to write. You sit down and write every day. That's essentially what Saunders says, but he does kind of help break down these stories and maybe give you some ideas about what might be missing from your stories and your writing. I also, I mentioned that was Buddy Read with Patrice Jones. Always great to read with Patrice and exchange ideas about the books. I think this was the book. our buddy read was the most successful, because I think we both got the most out of this book. I also finished up Oscar and Lucinda by Peter Carey. This was a buddy read I was doing with Kim from Middle of Book March. We have been having a good time exchanging Voxer messages during our reading, and then kind of getting together on our thoughts about the book once a month. Our last check-in is today, so she will have already had a chance, I think, to see my ideas. I'm actually going to send my last check-in ideas to her on Friday before I go out of town. So she'll have a chance to see my ideas about Oscar and Lucinda. So I know this book won the Booker Prize. I know my good friend Jason really likes this book, and he's planning on doing a group reread. Please, if you go to his community tab, you can see that. I think he's planning on that maybe for the fall. Maybe go sign up. I can see a lot of things in this book that are good. It's whimsical. It's funny. At times it's poignant. The writing can be beautiful. It's immersive in kind of mid to late 19th century society and manners and mores. It is satirical in its approach, perhaps, to the church and to traditional love stories or heroic family sagas. I can see all of that stuff in it, as well as, what I think some people will see is kind of a touching love story in it. But this is not a book I loved. This is a book that I liked. That's kind of where what I would say about it. There were some issues with the book that I just found to be things that were always like in my mind that just kind of bothered me about the book. If the book is supposed to be kind of a satire of love stories or of 19th century ideas or of an examination of kind of the conflict between religion and science, industrialization, I'm not sure it actually completely works on that level. To me, the two main characters, the titular characters of the book, are not two people who I felt a lot of empathy, compassion, understanding for. I thought they were interesting characters, but in the end, I wasn't sure that I needed them or expected them or was rooting for them to get together or not. That really wasn't something that I thought. Additionally, I just think there's some technical things. New characters are introduced within like the last 50 or 60 pages of the book who play an incredibly pivotal role in what happens. And for a book that is, over 400 pages, there's something that feels contrived about that. Hey, here's this book, this is the big plot point, this is the thing that's really going to, be the pinnacle of the action, but I can't get there without introducing a couple of new characters, so here they are. That kind of bothered me a little bit. I think there are some things that are that to me just don't make sense, which I can't go into because they'd be giving away the plot. But for me, and this is just me, and it probably is a niggling small thing, but the book is told by the main character, Oscar's great-grandson. We're supposed to believe that he's telling us this story about what he's learned about his great-grandparents and those things. And so we're supposed to believe that this is what's going on, but our narrator knows what's in the mind of every single character who lived 130 or so years ago. That, to me, that doesn't work. And there are a couple other plot contrivances I felt that are not really explained, just kind of dumped on us. Maybe that's a part of the satire I'm not getting, but there you go. Also, I'll be finishing up the buddy read I'm doing with Jack, the Rambling Raconteur, of... A cat just walked through in front of my window. I don't have a cat. Anyway, finishing up our buddy read of the 42nd Parallel. That has been great. I'm trying to think of a video I want to do about Dos Passos and about the 42nd Parallel specifically, but I've really been enjoying that. That's been really good. Okay, well, the last thing I want to leave you with is a video recommendation. One of my favorite channels the creator posts relatively rarely. One of my favorite channels when they do post is a channel called the Quiet Midden. And the Quiet Midden lives in, I believe, rural Canada, like near the Yukon Territory, I think. I always get this wrong, and I'm sorry. But they put up a trail cam, which is, I think, motion activated. They put up this trail cam that's motion activated and caught some incredible wildlife footage. If you ever want to know what it would look like to be, mauled by or licked by a bear, this is the video for you. I'll put a link to it down below. It is just extraordinary, and I'm a big fan of trail cam videos anyway. So there you go. There's my rant, my bookish week, and a video recommendation, which I'll leave a link to down below. I will be slow on responses to this, which I realize is problematic since I introduced a controversial topic and ranted about it. Sorry, but I will probably not be responding until at the very earliest Sunday. Anyway, look forward to your comments in the comment section below, and as always, thank you for watching.